Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are stripping away the dust of 11 millennia to look directly into the eyes of the deep past. Usually, when we talk about the Stone Age or the Neolithic period, we deal in abstractions. We talk about migration patterns, stone tool technologies, or vague spiritual beliefs. We rarely get to meet the people. We rarely see a face that looks back at us with an expression we can instantly recognize. That changed in the autumn of 2023. From the limestone bedrock of southeastern Turkey, a face emerged. It is a visage of haunting realism that shatters our previous understanding of the prehistoric mind. This is the story of the Karahantepe Visage and how it rewrites the opening chapters of the human narrative. Let's set the scene. We are in the rolling stone hills, or Tas Tepeler, of the Sanliurfa province in Turkey. This is roughly 35 kilometers from the world-renowned Göbekli Tepe. For years, Göbekli Tepe has held the crown as the zero point of history, introducing us to the monumental architecture of hunter-gatherers. But while Göbekli Tepe gave us the temples, Karahantepe has given us the congregation. It has introduced us to the people themselves, not as stylized symbols or faceless figures, but as three-dimensional, anatomically detailed and psychologically complex human beings. To understand why this is so revolutionary, we have to look at the timeline. We are talking about the pre-pottery Neolithic, roughly 9,600 to 8,200 BCE. For decades, the standard narrative of the Neolithic revolution was one of economic necessity. The old story went like this. People stopped hunting and gathering. They settled down to farm, and once they had full bellies and stored grain, only then did they have the free time and resources to build temples, create complex art, and develop organized religion. It was a pyramid, with food at the bottom and culture at the top. The discoveries in Upper Mesopotamia, first at Göbekli Tepe and now at Karahantepe, have completely inverted this pyramid. We now know that the impulse for the sacred, for ritual, and for artistic expression likely preceded, and perhaps even drove, the transition to sedentary life. People didn't build temples because they settled down. They settled down because they needed to be near the temples. Excavations at Karahantepe, led by Professor Nexmi Karul and his team as part of the Tas Tepeler project, have unearthed a site that is in many ways more enigmatic than its famous sister site. While Göbekli Tepe is famous for its circular enclosures and T-shaped pillars adorned with wild animals like scorpions, vultures, boars, and lions, Karahantepe presents a massive shift in focus. Here, the lens turns inward. The beast is no longer just the animal outside in the dark. The focus is the human within. The pinnacle of this shift was revealed with the unearthing of two specific artifacts that compete for the title of the world's oldest 3D human face. The first is a colossal 2.3-meter-tall statue of a seated man, and the second is a T-shaped pillar, carved with a distinct, realistic human face. Together, they form the Karahantepe Visage, a dual revelation of how our ancestors saw themselves. Let's start with the most striking figure, the seated giant, often called the Ribbed Man. This statue was found in the enclosure known as Structure AD. It stands, or rather sits, 2.3 meters high, which is about 7.5 feet. Now, we have found statues from this era before, most notably the Urfa Man, found near Balıklıgöl. But the Urfa Man is stiff, rigid, and lacks a mouth. The Karahantepe statue is entirely different. It is a masterclass in expressive dynamism. Carved from limestone, the figure is seated on a stone bench. His posture is rigid yet alive. The most arresting feature is the realism of his anatomy. The ribs are prominently carved, protruding against the skin in a way that suggests emaciation, or perhaps the state of a corpse. This skeletal detail is why he has earned the nickname the corpse statue among some circles. The spine is detailed, the shoulders broad, but it is the face that captivates you. The facial expression of the ribbed man is not blank. It possesses a heavy, perhaps somber brow, deep-set eyes, and a mouth that seems poised to speak or grimace. It is a specific face. When you look at it, you get the distinct impression that this is a portrait of a real individual, perhaps a shaman, a chief, or a revered ancestor, rather than just a generic symbol of a human. In a gesture of profound symbolic weight, the figure holds his phallus with both hands. Now, it is important to clarify that this is not the crude graffiti of later eras. This is a potent symbol of vitality, lineage, or perhaps the duality of life and death. The contrast is incredibly stark. You have the skeletal ribs representing death or the ancestors, and the phallus representing life and regeneration. This suggests a complex theological narrative about the cycle of existence that these people were grappling with 11,000 years ago. Simultaneous to the discovery of the seated giant, archaeologists uncovered another face that broke the 12,000-year-old rule. At Göbekli Tepe and other sites from this period, the T-shaped pillars are understood to be abstract human forms. The horizontal bar represents the head, and the vertical shaft is the body. They have arms and belts carved into them, but they never have faces. They are faceless watchers, perhaps gods too terrible or too abstract to depict. But at Karahantepe, That rule was broken. On one of the T-pillars in a domestic ritual structure, a three-dimensional human face was found carved directly out of the stone. It has a prominent nose, a strong jaw, and deep eyes. It emerges from the stone as if the human spirit is fighting to free itself from the abstract geometry of the pillar. This represents a massive cognitive leap. It is the moment the gods or spirits gained a human face. To really grasp the power of these artifacts, we have to understand the stage upon which they sit. Karahantepe is not a city in the modern sense. It is a sanctuary, a gathering place, and perhaps a theater of the macabre. The site is dominated by structure AD, the large chamber carved directly into the living bedrock where the seated giant was found. This structure is often described as resembling an amphitheater. One side features a long bench carved from the rock, and the other side features a series of pillars. Adjacent to this is one of the most baffling architectural features of the Neolithic world, known as Structure AB, or the Phallus Pit. It is a rock-cut chamber containing 11 T-shaped pillars carved directly from the floor, resembling phalluses, alongside a protruding human head carved from the rock wall. This head has a serpentine neck and gazes out over the pillars. This room was not entered by a door. It was likely accessed by a small window or opening, suggesting it was a space for looking into or for specific, restricted rituals. The architecture creates a controlled experience. The interplay of light and shadow, the subterranean nature of the rooms, many of which were roofed and semi-underground, and the staring faces of stone would have created an atmosphere of intense psychological power. Archaeologists have begun to draw fascinating contrasts between Göbekli Tepe and Karahantepe to explain this atmosphere. While they overlap in time, their artistic vibe differs significantly. Göbekli Tepe is often associated with the summer. Its carvings are teeming with life. There are spiders, snakes, scorpions, vultures, and foxes everywhere. It is an externalized celebration, or perhaps a fear, of the natural world. Karahantepe, by contrast, has been described by some scholars as representing the winter. The art is more solemn, more focused on the human form, and perhaps more connected to death and initiation rituals. The ribbed man, with his skeletal features, reinforces this. If Göbekli Tepe was a cathedral of life and nature, Karahantepe might have been the cathedral of the ancestors and the underworld. The location itself supports this. Situated in the Tek Mountains, it is a rugged, harsh landscape. The builders of Karahantepe were hunter-gatherers, but they were not wandering aimlessly. They were complex, sedentary foragers who returned to these stone hills seasonally or lived there permanently to construct these monuments. Let's take a moment to appreciate the technical achievement here. Why is the 3D aspect so important? In the history of art, the move from 2D incision, like drawing on a wall, to high relief, where shapes stick out, and finally to fully freestanding 3D sculpture represents a massive leap in technical skill and cognitive representation. To carve the Karahantepe Visage, the artist had to conceptualize the human head in the round. They had to understand volume, depth, and proportion from all angles. And remember, they were mastering the material without metal tools. They were working with limestone, using tools made of flint and obsidian. To achieve the smooth cheeks, the ridge of the nose, and the hollows of the eyes required immense patience and a technology of abrasion and chipping that was state-of-the-art for 9400 BCE. But beyond the technique, it asserts the ego. The creation of a realistic human face suggests a new level of self-importance. In the Paleolithic Ice Age, humans were rarely depicted. Animals ruled the cave walls of Lascaux and Altamira. Humans were stick figures, insignificant in the face of the bison and the mammoth. At Karahantepe, the human is the central subject. The human has become the master of the stone. This marks the human turn in iconography. It suggests that these people were beginning to see themselves as distinct from the animal kingdom, perhaps even superior to it. It is the genesis of the anthropocentric worldview that defines civilization. One of the most haunting facts about Karahantepe is how it ended. Like Göbekli Tepe, the structures at Karahantepe were not destroyed by war or natural disaster. They were deliberately buried. The people who built these magnificent halls and carved these staring faces spent immense effort to fill them in with rubble, earth, and stone chips. The ribbed man was not toppled by an enemy. He was likely covered in the very earth from which he was hewn, sealed in a time capsule by his own creators. Why would they do this? Theories abound. Was it a ritual closure? Did the power of the site become too dangerous? Did the culture change, moving away from these intense rituals as they adopted agriculture more fully? Or was the act of building and burying the ritual itself, a cycle of creation and destruction mimicking the seasons? Whatever the reason, the deliberate burial preserved the limestone faces in pristine condition, saving them from 11,000 years of erosion, allowing them to stare at us today with the same intensity as the day they were covered. Karahantepe is just one of 12 sites identified in the Stone Hills project. The region around Sanliurfa is proving to be a megalopolis of the Neolithic. Sites like Seberg, Karahantepe and Harbutsuvan are yielding their own treasures. At Cyberk, a relief was found of a man holding his phallus while surrounded by leopards, a thematic cousin to the Karahantepe giant. As excavation continues, we can expect more faces to emerge. The Karahantepe Visage is likely not alone. It is the ambassador of a lost people, a silent witness to the moment when humanity looked in the mirror and decided to carve what it saw. In conclusion, the Karahantepe Visage is more than a statue. It is a psychological event. When you look at the photos of the ribbed man, you are not looking at a primitive artifact. You are looking at a person. You see the tension in the neck, the shadow of the brow, the specific shape of the nose. It forces us to abandon the idea of primitive man. The people of 9400 BCE were emotionally and intellectually modern. They felt the weight of mortality in their ribs, the drive of life, and the need to be remembered in stone. In the silent, stony stare of the Karahantepe giant, we find a reflection of ourselves. It is an ancient selfie carved in limestone, reminding us that the search for meaning, for identity, and for permanence is as old as the first sunrise over the stone hills. The face has returned from the dark, and it has a lot to tell us. Thank you for listening to Fun Facts Online.